Hello, everybody, and welcome to 38 Weeks to Go, your weekly podcast about fantasy football. I am your host, Nash, and let's get into it. Game Week 25 is done. How did you do? Well, after a series of double game weeks in which I got 86 this week and 100 plus last week, I have never shot down that table so quick. I'm being punished for my success. And this right here is the problem of being a big fish in a big pond. When everybody performs, nothing changes. Goodness. So, let me tell you about my team. So I got 86 points. I mean, on the surface, that's good. But in the first game, I got Konate. He got subbed at halftime. I got Disasi. They didn't keep a freaking clean sheet against Ipswich. So I brought in Disasi, I brought in Konate. Of course, I had Salah. And then, of course, Mr. Gakpo, for whatever reason, he seemed fine, but then suddenly, he doesn't play both game weeks. And I was really counting on him to be a differential. So what happens? Milenkovic comes on and gives me 1 point. I'm telling you, sometimes you can plan well, and the football gods laugh. Now, on the other end of Konate is the people who chose Trent, because it was like magic. Slot removed him before Wolves scored, and then removes him after he scores last night. A bunch of you chose Emery as manager, anticipating points against Ipswich, and then maybe something small against Liverpool, but that Ipswich game, it was really a letdown. For those of us who kept Palmer, it's been a tough run. Watching the Brentford highlights, seeing Wissa scored 2 goals and having both of them ruled out. And then it wasn't even him on Boomer who scored, it was Shada. Well, I did recommend him, but most people chose the other two. Forest won 7-0, so a bunch of us were just like, yeah, we're going to do it. Nope, they lose. Chelsea get absolutely hammered. Newcastle get absolutely hammered as well. I guess that's why we love football. You just can't predict it. Well, not well enough. The highest scoring game of the weekend, so Manchester City beat Newcastle United 4-0. Real Madrid had just beaten Man City the week before, and so they looked fragile, but boy, was that a comeback. They looked perfect. I was there looking at the scoreline. I have Haaland in my team, so it was like, okay, 1-0. Is it Haaland? No, it's Mamouche. 2-0. Is it Haaland? No, it's Mamouche. 3-0. Is it Haaland? No, it's Mamouche. I'm like, what? Mamouche hat-trick? Goodness. Man City have their own Egyptian king. Oh, I guess we should call him the prince, since the king is in Liverpool. And then 4-0. Is it Haaland? Nope. But at least he had an assist. This was Mamouche's coming out party, and I know that a bunch of you have him in your teams already, I'm sure. I don't even need to. I just know. I remember when Doku scored that hat-trick last season. Just remember that. Now, that aside, Mamouche and Haaland link up in a way that Haaland and Doku never were able to do. They just seem to understand what they're supposed to do while playing with each other. And I don't understand why Doku never figured it out. This is what I had wanted Doku to be, because he has all of the tools. He has everything to be incredible, but he's holding himself back. So Man City scored 4 goals. Haaland didn't even have 1, and they kept a clean sheet. Very impressive. Newcastle on the other end of that, I don't understand them. They seem to be a good team, then they just get beaten. When they just beaten 5 the other day, there's just something inconsistent about them. But then again, also, they are better at home than they are away, but not this bad. And having watched Man City being dismantled by Mbappe last night, Man City aren't that great yet. They're still this team in transition. And I guess it shows when they play good teams. So, Salah captain anyone? So that was the highest scoring game of the week. Now, when it comes to the most disappointing game, There are two contenders for me. Okay, maybe three. Number one, Aston Villa won, Ipswich won. Ipswich are being beaten by everybody. Aston Villa are playing twice. Why can't you give us a clean sheet? That really hurt me. I felt like it was a personal attack. Another one was Fulham 2, Forest 1. Like, what happened? But the biggest one, I guess, yeah, it has to be Brighton 3, Chelsea 0. Now, any of those games can be your most disappointing match, and I wouldn't argue with you. For me, it's the Ipswich one because Ipswich are not a good team and they're struggling. But this game was so competitive. Then you have Chelsea being hammered. It doesn't even make sense. But it seems I've gotten ahead of myself. Let me just go back a bit. Mamouche got the 3 bonus points, Edison got 2, and Stones got 1. Now, if you consider Fulham Forest a disappointing game, Emil Smith-Rowe got amongst the scorers. Bassi was another scorer. Adama Traore played really well. And Raul Jimenez. Him and Raul had the assists. Wood scored again for Forest. I swear I don't have a reason not to have him in my team, except that I don't. Gibbs White had the assist, as expected. Now, when it comes to bonus points in that game, Wood got 3, Emil Smith-Rowe got 2, and Adama got 1. Honestly, 2-1 is such a kind result for Forest, because if you watch that game, you know they deserve to be beaten more. Mr. Sells, the goalkeeper, made 8 saves. He was really tested. When it comes to Ipswich, it must be said, their goalkeeper was incredible. They have a new guy. They got rid of Muric. What's he called? Palmer. It's a good name for a keeper, right? Palmer. Anyway, Palmer made incredible saves. I can't even really be mad with Villa because sometimes keepers just have one of those days when they play at 10, and Palmer did the best he could. In fact, in a way, it would have been harsh if they lost that game because he was incredible. Rashford got the 3 bonus points, Watkins got 2, and Delap got 2. I don't know if you remember the previous pod. I was like, oh yeah, and bring Minte on as an afterthought. Boy, was I right. He was like, oh, you're going to be making me an afterthought. Okay, I'll destroy your team. So he had 2 goals and Mitoma had 1. Welbeck had 2 assists and Verbruggen had an assist. Goalkeepers are starting to have assists. It seems like if you have a combination of maybe Edison, Verbruggen, and who was the other keeper who had an assist? I can't remember him right now. But it seems like if you pick your keeper right, you could get many more points than you expected. Now, Chelsea, they just were beaten by Brighton just the weekend before, and Brighton just remembered how to beat them. You'd think the manager would come up with counter tactics, but he did not. Minte had 3 bonus points, Mitoma had 2, and Verbruggen had 1. When it comes to the marquee match, I think I'm going to stop calling it the marquee match. Let me just call it the popular match, the TV match. It was Spurs versus Manchester United. Spurs won 1-0. Maddison was a goal scorer. To be fair to both teams, Vicario was really, really good in goal, and Onana was also really, really good in goal. If it wasn't for the goalkeepers in this match, there would have been more goals. The goalkeepers were excellent. In fact, Onana was only scored because of a rebound. Each keeper made 6 saves, and those saves were good. Spence had the 3 bonus points, Maddison had 2, and Vicario had 1. Bagwell had the assist for Maddison's goal. Liverpool were not impressive in any of their games this weekend. They just sort of managed to scrape through both of them. But a win is a win, right? Looking at the top players of the game week, starting with the goalkeepers. Edison was a top keeper with 11 points. Flecken had 10, along with Verbruggen. Vicario had 9. Raya had 7. Also, there were 4 clean sheets this weekend. When it comes to defenders, Trent had 13 points. Spence had 9. Collins had 8. Bassi had 8. Stones had 7. When it comes to midfield, Mo Salah had 20 points. Best performer of the weekend yet again. I think this is his 6th or 7th time. Minte had 15 points. Merino had 13 points, along with Christie, Alcaraz, Luis Diaz, all had 13 points. Tillemans had 12. Mitoma and Madison had 10. When it comes to forwards, Marmoush was the best forward, 17 points. Watkins, second best, with 15 points. Wood and Cunha were tied for 9 points. Welbeck, Beto, Delap tied for 5th with 8 points each. It was a double game week, and there were some statistics that came out of it. Let's go. With his haul over the double game week, Salah is now the 3rd highest all-time FPL player. Rooney is number 1, Lampard is number 2. He has just overtaken Steven Gerrard. Rooney's at the top with 23.38 points, Lampard 23.18, Mo Salah 20.46, Steven Gerrard 20.44, and number 5 is Peter Cech 19.08. Only 5 players have ever scored 15 plus goals and 15 plus assists in a single season. Number 1 is Eric Cantona. In 92-93, he had 15 goals, 16 assists. 94-95, Matt Le Tissier, 19 goals, 15 assists. 02-03, Thierry Henry, 24 goals, 20 assists. Eden Hazard, 18-19, 16 goals, 15 assists. 24-25, Mo Salah, 24 goals, 15 assists. And we have like 13 games left. With 271 points, Salah has now surpassed the total points in all of his previous seasons except for 2017-18. And there's still 12 games to go. And you still don't have him in your team. Of course, like you previously heard, he overtook Steven Gerrard in points. So that means now he is Liverpool's best performing fantasy asset of all time. Mo Salah is the first player to score an assist in 10 different games in one of Europe's top 5 leagues since Lionel Messi did it in 14-15. That's great company. Arne Slot has won 60 points in 25 Premier League games. The only manager in the competition's history to win more points through his first 25 games is Jose Mourinho. Ederson has now got the most assists of any goalkeeper, 6, in Premier League history. He's also the first goalkeeper in the Premier League to have 3 assists in one season. Damsgaard from Brentford is the only player in the Premier League with 5 or more assists, 40 plus chances created, 150 plus passes into the final third, 50 plus tackles, and 120 duels won. So he's a sneaky good defender. He has all the underlying stats. I wonder if that translates into points. Southampton have faced the most shots in the Premier League this season with 172 on target. Brentford are number 2 with 151. They've faced 151 shots on target. This is Brentford's highest in the Premier League so far. David Moyes has rejuvenated Beto. That's all. Manchester United have lost 12 of the 25 Premier League games this season. This sees them see their most defeats from the opening 25 matches since 1973-74 when they lost 13. And when that happened, they were relegated. Spurs winning against Manchester United was their first home victory in 2025. They hadn't won at home since November. And by November, I mean November 3, that long ago. Of the players in the Premier League who have had 10 or more big chances, Alejandro Garnacho has the lowest conversion rate. 2 of 14 of them. In both games, Liverpool scored some, let's say, dubious goals. Did you see Luis Diaz's goal? Anyway, that was his 13th goal of the season and his first of 2025. So if you had him in your team, you were just really gambling. Mo Salah has had 1 or 2 goal involvements in 101 matches. I don't know. But not enough words left to say about this monster. In a bit of a funny one, Everton have already won more Premier League games this season under David Moyes, 4 in 6 games, than they did under Sean Dyche, 3 in 19 games. Alcaraz was really great for Everton in their win. Not only did he score an assist, but he was involved in 8 of their 11 shots. So if you're looking into Everton assets, look no further. Bournemouth's highest ever point tally in the Premier League is 48. They currently have 43 points. There are 13 games left. They're looking to have their best season ever in the Premier League. Nico Gonzalez of Manchester City made his Premier League debut, and it was a passing clinic. He made 101 passes. He completed 98 of them successfully to have a 97% accuracy of the match. They won 4-0. Well done. After meeting in 15 different seasons, Bournemouth finally beat Southampton twice in one season. Brentford beat West Ham 1-0. That was their third successive Premier League away game victory, and that's a new club record. Mamouche scored a hat-trick against Newcastle. It was the fourth fastest hat-trick by a Manchester City player. Number 1 is Aguero. Against Newcastle, it took him 11 minutes and 40 seconds between the first and third goal. Carlos Tevez, it took him 12 minutes and 24 seconds. It took Sterling 13 minutes and 12 seconds. And then Mamouche, 13 minutes and 54 seconds. Chris Wood has scored 29 goals in 41 Premier League games for Espirito Santo. Since his first game in the 23rd of December in 2023, only Haaland, who scored 32, Isak 31, and Palmer 30 have scored more Premier League goals than Wood. Salah is the highest scoring player in the Gameweek for the 6th time this season. No other player has done it more than twice. In case you're thinking of using your assistant manager chip, let me tell you who the top scoring managers are. Number 1, Hetzler, 21, Marco Silva, 18, Unai Emery, 14, Arne Slot, 13, Pep, 12. That was for this week. Salah was the most selected player. He was the most captained player. The most vice-captain player was Palmer. The most brought-in transfer this week, of course, is Mamouche with 420,000. Tommy Oladipo, I hope you're not one of them. Kluivert is second with 316,000. Mitoma, 237,000. Cunha, 204,000. Nwaneri, 187,000. Top transfers out: Gakpo, 546,000. Ahmad, 704,000. Palmer, 195,000. Rogers, I swear people are done with Rogers, 161,000. DI, 139,000. The highest points scored this week was 155. The average points were 74. If you got over 74, well done. So the top earner, or rather the top week points tally getter, I can't read the name because it's in Arabic and I can't read Arabic, but they got 155 points. They triple captained Salah, which got them 60 points. In midfield, he had Salah 60, Mbumo 3, Tielemans 12, Maddison 10. Up top, he had Mamouche 17, Wood 9, Watkins 15. At the back, he had Trent for 13, Vardiol 6, Saliba 6, and Alisson 4. That gave him a total of 155. This week in our group, we have 2 people tied for number 1. And by number 1, I mean in tally leader points. We have Stan Midea, manager of Gangilonga, who had 118 points. This manager played his assistant manager chip and chose Iraola. In goal, he had Kepa, who had 3. He had Kukureya, who gave him 1. Trent, who gave him 13. Digne gave him 5. Eze, wow. It's been long since I've seen someone choose Eze. Well, Eze gave him 1. Kluivert gave him 5. Salah was his captain, who gave him 40. Rogers gave him 4. Luis Diaz gave him 13. Wood gave him 9. Watkins gave him 15. And Iraola gave him 9. For a grand total of 118 points. The other manager is Ron Chisaka, manager of Hapanibiztu, 118 points as well.
They also used the assistant manager chip. In goal, he had Flecken, who gave him 10, Hall, who gave him 0, Trent, who gave him 13, Robinson, who gave him 2, Trossard, who gave him 6, Mo Salah, who gave him 40 as captain, Palmer, who gave him 2, Luis Diaz, who gave him 13, Mateta, who gave him 7, Isak, who gave him 2, Wood, who gave him 9, and Emery, who gave him 14. So as you can see, unlike the last time when we had 2 people tied with identical teams, this team is very different from the other one. There are many ways to skin a cat. Kelvin Udoga is the manager whose team had the most goals scored, with 7 being scored by his team. When it comes to the best transfer outcome, manager Peter Kimani of Angukanayo FC gained 37 points from his transfers. Well done, sir. He used his free hit and he chose well. In number 2, it was Mislenovic Nikola, who got 31 points. Naeem Ali, Zuru FC manager, got 30 points. Control-Alt-Delete, 27 points. And Dennis Giviga got 19 points. Well done. May you continue to be shrewd. When it comes to a streak of green arrows, Tortured Coaches Department, managed by Moses Mushiri, has seen green arrows for 8 straight weeks. I'm so jealous. I think I'm seeing red arrows for like 3 or 4 straight weeks. Don Clinton continues his streak of making the most transfers, which is now 8, which was the most that any of us made. Highest change in team value sees Chris Masika, manager of Rohombaya. He has added 0.3 to his team. When it comes to our overall rank riser, Stan Midea, who got 118, has jumped 704,000 positions globally. When it comes to the highest team value, Suraj Baigane, 106.8. It's dropped from 106.9, but still higher than anybody else's in our league. When it comes to poor transfer decisions, standing by himself at number 1 is Bonaji, manager of Pepe Calais. If he had just left his team as it was, he would have gained 37, but he lost 37 points. In number 2, it is Dennis Odera with negative 15. Number 3 is Ayodele Oladuni, negative 14. Nkunku FC number 4, minus 12. Alvin O, minus 12. So as you can see, Bonaji is more than double anybody else. When it comes to the most points on the bench, someone had 25 points on the bench, and that manager is Nkunku FC. And 17 of those points were, of course, Mamouche. And not only that, Mamouche was a 3rd player on the bench, so he had even no chance of even hoping that he could come on. Number 2 was Clinton Oko, who had 23 points on the bench, followed by Vinny McCory, who had 22. Pablo had 21, and the Boost FC had 21 as well. When it comes to losing team value, Ekigogo, managed by Commander Amos, lost 0.9. The Boost FC is a team in our league that lost the most rank globally. He dropped 934,000 positions. When it comes to streak of red arrows, Sobovic FC has seen red arrows for 10 weeks in a row. Goodness, I hope I don't continue for that long. Least points this week, Duncan Anzigari, manager of Real Vincenza, got 32 points. This person is somebody who's inactive. De Bruyne was their captain. You know, I thought even worth reading the team. He's an inactive player. Second from bottom, 36 points, Maresca 11. Olu the analyst got 37, as well as the Gunners. And I believe the Hype FC got 41. Henry Malik has a team with the lowest team value, 96.5. Manager John Lucas of Uber Eats dropped 25 positions in our league table. When it comes to captain choices, 186 of us chose Mr. Salah to be our captain. Number 2 was Haaland, who was chosen by 17. Oh, how the tables have turned. Isak was chosen by 7. Palmer was chosen by 7. Look at that. Palmer is also going down. Gakpo was chosen by 4. I hope Salah was your vice. Wood was chosen by 3. Some people still have Solanke. Watkins was chosen by 2. Not a bad choice. Cunha was chosen by 1. Højlund chosen by 1. De Bruyne chosen by 1. Trent chosen by 1. Delap chosen by 1. Nicholas Jackson chosen by 1. Kluivert chosen by 1. And somebody still has Havertz, even though he's out. When it comes to our table, we have a new leader. Dubois, original manager of Dubois FPL. They got 102 points, which sees them take back the number 1 position. Number 2 is Odu, managed by Oti Omondi. Number 1 has 1739 points. Number 2 has 1733. Yusufa Mukoko, 1728 points. Number 4, Abdallah Kili, 1723 points. Tenor FC, 1719 points. Andrei Shevchenko, 1714 points. Reese's Set Pieces, 1698. Number 8, Franklin Asiama, 1694. The Walker Dead, 1688. Number 10, Dennis Alubiri, 1687. As you can see, we have broken the 1700 point barrier. Number 1 in the world has about 1900. So we're 200 points off the world leader. Between number 1 and number 27 is 100 points. And between number 1 and number 10 is 52 points. At the bottom of the table, manager Don Clinton is still bottom, but he had a good week. Even though he had made 8 transfers, which lost him 28 points, he still got 115 points. And that closes the gap between him and number 2, number 2 from bottom, number 235, who is Duncan Anzigare. Just to over 100 points. I mean, it's still ridiculous. Now, Duncan Anzigare has 943, 234, Gifto Malangi has 1032, 233 has 1072, and 232 has 1075. So you can see between the bottom 5, it's over 200 points. There are teams which are already relegated. So now I'm going to do something different. I'm going to add a new section. I'm going to look at the number 1 team in the world. The global leader is somebody called Max Little Proud, manager of Levenshulme United. I'm sure I butchered that. He got 101 points this week for a grand total of 1909 points. In case you want to know who his team is, in goal, he has Pickford, who gave him 3. He has Trent, who gave him 13. He has Gabriel, who gave him 6. He has Ola Aina, who gave him 1. He has Kluivert, who gave him 5. Rogers, who gave him 4. Palmer, who gave him 2. Bumo, who gave him 3. Salah, who gave him 40. Isak, who gave him 2. Wood, who gave him 9. And Slot, who gave him 13. Slot was his assistant manager. It doesn't seem like an overly complicated team, but it has delivered. Out of his team, I have 4 players that are similar to his. How many do you have? Let's keep watching this space. When it comes to fixtures, the first thing to know is that the double game week, first of all, there's a double game week that's coming on Gameweek 32 that has been announced, and there's a blank week in Gameweek 29. The game week starts on Friday, which is tomorrow. But by the time you're listening to this, it's going to be today. So the game week starts tonight, and Leicester take on Brentford. Leicester and Brentford make up the top 5 teams that have faced the most goals. Now, Leicester haven't scored in I think 5 games. So it means Brentford might not be tested as much. In their last 5 games, Leicester have only won once, and it was against the unpredictable Spurs. Brentford, it's a mixed bag. They've won 2, lost 2, drawn 1. Leicester haven't kept a clean sheet in 21 matches. So this game lines up nicely for Brentford to win their 4th game in a row away from home. For Brentford, Shada, Wissa, Mbumo, Damsgaard. Those are the choices. And possibly a keeper/defender, depending on how you're feeling. Justin, Edouard, Sotar, Pereira, Fatau are out for Leicester. Rodrigue, Da Silva, Gomez, Hickey, and Henry are out for Brentford. The last time these two teams met, Shada had a hat-trick and Risa scored. And Bonanote scored for Leicester. The score was 4-1. So Shada just scored over the weekend. Might he score again? Might be the first person we should choose. Maybe. Leicester, if you're choosing their assets, they haven't scored, I think, in 4 or 5 games, and they don't keep clean sheets. Is it really worth it to recommend anybody from their team? Anyway, just for parity, I will do that. And I will say Vardy, Ayew, El Kanous. But don't choose a player from Leicester. On Saturday, Everton take on Manchester United. As you heard a little earlier, Everton are in great form. Manchester United are in relegation form. I honestly think Everton are favourites for this game. In fact, having chosen Moyes as your assistant manager would have been such a great thing if you did it for the last 3 or 4 weeks. Now, Amad Diallo is out, and he's out for the rest of the season, which means now that Bruno Fernandes is their best player. And then you just have to gamble on a second best. Maybe it's Garnacho. Ahmad is out. Eriksen, Evans, Mainu, Yoro, Martinez, Shaw, Ugarte, Mount, Collier are out for Manchester United. They're just a bit unlucky with injuries. Everton, Chemiti, Coleman, Mangala, Pattison, Diaye, McNeil, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Broja are out. Honestly, for Manchester United at this point, it's going to be Højlund, Bruno Fernandes, and Garnacho. For Everton, Beto, Doucouré, and Alcaraz, of course. In their last 5 games, Everton have won 3, drawn 1, lost 1. Manchester United lost 2, won 3. So this includes cups and Europe. So the form looks better than it is. Everton have scored 9 in the last 5 games and they're looking great. Manchester United have only scored 5 in the last 5 games. Manchester United have the better head-to-head record, as you can imagine. So based on history, they're favourites, but based on form, it's definitely Everton, and I think Beto and Alcaraz will create trouble. Bournemouth versus Wolves. Wolves are out of their very difficult fixtures, and now they're in their less obvious but still tricky fixtures. Wolves are not going to be favourites against Bournemouth. Their head-to-head has Bournemouth winning 3, losing 1, and drawing 1. Bournemouth are favourites for this fixture. In their most recent encounter, Kluivert had a hat-trick of penalties. So that is why you heard a lot of people bringing him in. They're going to be hoping for a similar performance. Kakers also scored. Now, Smith, Unal, Evanilson, Hill, Araujo, Senesi are out for Bournemouth. Johnston, Gomez, Kaladzic, Mosquera, Chiwome, Larson, Huang, Gonzalez, Agbadu, so many players, are out for Wolves. Cunha, Guedes, and Sarabia are the best chances for Wolves. For Bournemouth, Kluivert, Ouattara, Semenyo. And if you somehow believe that they'll keep a clean sheet, Kirkes or Huijsen. Arsenal versus West Ham. Arsenal were impressive last time out. West Ham are looking horrible. Potter is not having the best time. Him and Amorim, same what's up. Arsenal are still also quite depleted. If you look at the people who are unavailable, you have Saka, Jesus, Martinelli, Havertz, Tomiyasu. On the other end, Somerville, Paqueta, Antonio, Fulkrug, Kufal. West Ham haven't kept a clean sheet in 8 matches. Well, Arsenal have been much better defensively than that. In their recent matches, Arsenal beat them 5-2, 6-0, and then lost 3-1, drew 2-2, and lost 2-0. So it's literally even. So there's a chance, but I have a sneaky feeling that Arsenal will win. Nwaneri is their best player right now. He seems to be
creating and scoring chances. Of course, if you want to put Merino, you can, but that's a bit of a gamble. And then you have a defender because they should be able to keep a clean sheet in this game. They're at home. They do well at home. And in the midfield, I think you choose Trossard. For West Ham, it is Bowen and then Kudus. And maybe Emerson or Wan-Bissaka. Because I remember the last time they played each other, both of those wing backs somehow both scored. Fulham versus Crystal Palace. Now, both managers are good contenders for the assistant manager chip. If you haven't used it, Marco Silva better than the other guy, Glasner. Fulham were impressive beating Forest last time out. Emil Smith-Rowe scored. Hoping that this is some form that he's picking up. Him, Anthony Robinson, and Raul Jimenez are the people I'd recommend from this team. For Crystal Palace, I would recommend Mateta, Gay, and Sar, or Eze, depending on which one you prefer. Their head-to-head is a bit boring. Fulham won 1, then you have 3 draws, and then Fulham won. So Fulham are favoured in this fixture. Moving on to Ipswich versus Tottenham. This is an unpredictable game. Ipswich really broke our hearts by not letting Villa keep a clean sheet. So, of course, I'm hoping for Delap to score now. But Vicario is back, so that should be something interesting. Tottenham beat Manchester United last time out, but it wasn't a convincing victory. But a victory is a victory. A win is a win, right? Vicario is back and their defense looks better already. Last time they met, Delap scored and Smotsic scored and Bentancur scored for Spurs. Ipswich won 2-1. Can they do the double? Tuanzebe is suspended for his red card. Ogbene, Walton, Chaplin, and Ciso, Davis, Morsi, Smotsic, Burns are unavailable for Ipswich. Timo Werner, Bentancur, Richarlison, Dragusin, Van de Ven, Danso, Son, Solanke, Romero are all out. So what does this mean? It means that Tell, Kulusevski, and Maddison are your best bets for Tottenham. On the other end, it's Delap, Hutchinson, and that's it. There's no need for a third person. Looking at the next fixture, we have Southampton versus Brighton. Southampton, like I said, they were competitive against Bournemouth, but would still lose. And that is the same kind of vibe I'm still feeling for them in this fixture against Brighton. Now, the difference between Brighton and Bournemouth is that Brighton can be surprised in a way that Bournemouth can't. So if there's ever to be an upset, I can see one here very easily. However, when it comes to unavailable players, starting with the Saints, Lallana, Downs, Stevens, Stewart, Fraser, Howard Bellis are unavailable. Kadioglu, Igor, Milner. Has Milner even played this season? Steele, Dunk, Estupinian, March are unavailable for Brighton. Welbeck, Mente, and Mitoma. Easy. Those are my suggestions for Brighton. For Southampton, Sulemana, Aribo, and Onwahu, and Downing if he's playing. Aston Villa versus Chelsea. Now, in their last 5 fixtures, Chelsea have won twice, drawn twice, lost once. So they have the slight edge, but they're not in great form. They just got hammered twice in a row by the same team. Palmer looks like he's forgotten who he was. He's not called Palmer anymore. He's more like Warm Palmer. He's done. He's cooked. At his price, he might be too expensive. I'm hoping that all of this spurs him to score a hat-trick. So you have him as, of course, one of your best Chelsea players. Nkunku and Neto. Badiashile, Fofana, Slonina, Gusto, Guiu, Jackson, Madueke, Lavia, Fofana are unavailable. Barkley, Torres, Bailey, Konsa, Camara, Onana are unavailable for Aston Villa, and Disasi won't be allowed to play because he's on loan from Chelsea. If there's only one thing we've learned from the double game week of Aston Villa is that they can't defend, or rather, when you need them to defend, they're unable to keep a clean sheet. So if you must have the defender,
have one who's likely to have an assist, Digne or Mings. And then you have Watkins, and then your poison of Rodgers, Rashford, and Asensio. For Chelsea, just to reiterate, it's Palmer, Neto, and Kuku. For the Sunday matchup, we have two big games. One is Newcastle versus Nottingham Forest. And honestly, you can convince me that both sides can be beaten 7-0 by each other. I can see it so easily. And if not necessarily 7, you can convince me that either side will thrash the other. Now, what will be harder to convince me of is the other game where it's Man City-Liverpool. That one, you can't convince me Man City will thrash Liverpool. But you can convince me that Liverpool will comfortably win against Man City. Anyway, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Newcastle versus Nottingham Forest. In their last encounter, Newcastle beat them 3-1. Newcastle beat them beat them on penalties in the FA Cup. Then beat them in the league. Basically, Newcastle have the better record. And for whatever reason, I just believe that this will prevail. I believe Newcastle will beat Forest. And Isak, Gordon, Murphy. Now, Burns, Lascelles, Joelinton, and Botman are unavailable. Awani is unavailable for Forest. Wow. The people have come back. That's nice. Anyway, for Nottingham Forest, Wood, Gibbs White, Elanga. It's not broken, don't fix it. The final game of the game week will see Manchester City take on Liverpool. The last time out, Liverpool were comfortable winners, beating Manchester City 2-0. But City did not have Mamouche. I know, that's what some of you will be saying. Now, hoping Haaland is back and Mamouche and Haaland have that partnership going on, it is true, they could cause a lot of trouble. But after watching them against Real Madrid, it just seems that there's a certain level where they reach and they can't perform. So I believe Liverpool will be favourites. Of course, Jota, Salah, and maybe a defender since they kept a clean sheet last time. But if not a defender, Szoboszlai. For Manchester City, if Haaland is back, it's always Haaland. Silva tends to perform in big games. KDB will probably be important if City are to do anything good. In the second half of the season is when Gundogan tends to show up, but this is not that kind of City anymore. So I would say a cheap entry is Mamouche. So Mamouche, but traditionally I would go with Haaland, Silva, Foden. Stones, Akanji, Bob, Rodri are unavailable, whilst Gakpo, Gomez, and Morton are unavailable for Liverpool. Morton. When you're seeing a name for the first time and you're like, why are they even giving us news about Morton? As you're making your team, keep an eye out for Gameweek 29. There's a blank, and maybe if you're going to use a free hit so you don't care, but just keep it in mind. Looking at the FPL FDR, starting with Arsenal, they are facing West Ham, Forest, Man United, Chelsea, Fulham. Apart from Man United and West Ham, the other games are tricky. I could see them beating Forest comfortably. I could see Chelsea giving them trouble, and then Fulham surprising them. But honestly, these are all winnable fixtures for them. Aston Villa have Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Brentford, Brighton. They have a blank in Gameweek 29. These are fixtures that they could win or lose. These are all losable fixtures for them. They could win all of them, but they could lose all of them. They're not difficult, but they're not easy either. Just their peers. Bournemouth have Wolves, Brighton, Tottenham, Brentford, and Ipswich. Honestly, I can see Bournemouth winning 3 out of these 5 games. Brentford face Leicester, Everton, Villa, Bournemouth, and Newcastle. Those are going to be tricky games. Leicester, they can win. Everton, I don't believe so. Aston Villa at home, maybe. Bournemouth, no. Newcastle, no. So it's a bit of a tough run for them. Brighton have Southampton, Bournemouth, Fulham, City, Villa. They can definitely beat Southampton. And then 3 out of 5 they can win. I'm sure about that. Chelsea have Villa, Southampton, Leicester, Arsenal, Spurs.
They could get a result at Villa, could be a draw. They can beat Southampton, they will beat Leicester. So I'm actually saving Palmer up until the Leicester game. If he hasn't scored, if he hasn't given me double-digit returns in these 2 games, we're done. Crystal Palace have Fulham, Villa, Ipswich, blank, and then Southampton. Crystal Palace can win 4 out of these 5 games. 3 out of these 4 games. Everton have Man United, Brentford, Wolves, West Ham, Liverpool. Literally, apart from Liverpool, I can see them winning all of these games the way they're playing right now. I'm so happy I have Beto. I can see him scoring in all of these games. Fulham have Crystal Palace, Wolves, Brighton, Tottenham, Arsenal. Outside the Arsenal game, I believe all of these guys are at their level. And they can beat them and they can lose to them. It's just like I said earlier about, I think it was Brighton, where it's just winnable fixtures. Aston Villa. These are all winnable and losable fixtures at the same time. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they lose all of them, and also wouldn't be surprised if they win all of them. Maybe the Arsenal game, but the rest, I could see them winning. Ipswich have Tottenham, Man United, Crystal Palace, Forest, and Bournemouth. They are going to fight as they have been fighting the whole season, but ultimately, they're going to come out of these next 5 with a losing record. Leicester have Brentford, West Ham, Chelsea, Man United, and City. For me, Leicester have lost the fight. They don't seem to have the fire to win anymore. I could see them winning maybe 1 out of these 5 and drawing another. That's the best I can see. Liverpool have City, Newcastle, Southampton, blank, Everton. The City game, City are just, we don't know who will show up, but Liverpool should beat them. And Liverpool should beat everybody else after that. Man City have Liverpool, Tottenham, Forest, Brighton, Leicester. Last time I said that, it looks like their fixtures are descending in difficulty, and then they proceeded to get beaten in all of those games, apart from the Leicester game. So I'm going to say it again. These games look like they're descending in difficulty, but I honestly expect them not to win. I expect them to lose against Liverpool, and then struggle, and then lose to either Spurs, Forest, or Brighton. Man United have Everton, Ipswich, Arsenal, Leicester, and Norwich. I think only Ipswich and Leicester they can beat, and that's only because those teams are below them. Everton are below them, but Everton are better than them right now. Man United are in trouble. Newcastle have Forest, Liverpool, West Ham, blank, Brentford. Against Forest, it could go either way. I think they will be beaten by Liverpool. I think they will beat West Ham. Then there's a blank, and then I think they can beat Brentford. Forest have Newcastle, Arsenal, City, Ipswich, Man United. These games all seem difficult on paper, but on the ground, Nottingham Forest have proven to be a difficult team to beat sometimes. But if this was last season, I would have said that, they're going to lose all of these games. But this season, if you told me they're going to draw against Newcastle, Arsenal, and Man City, I can believe that. With Forest, just believe what you want to believe. Southampton have Brighton, Chelsea, Liverpool, Wolves, and Crystal Palace. Southampton are competitive now, but it's too late. They will be trouble, they will score, but they'll ultimately lose. Spurs have Ipswich, City, Bournemouth, Fulham, Chelsea. Now, this is interesting. I can see them being beaten by Ipswich and then beating Man City. And then losing to Bournemouth, losing to Fulham, and then beating Chelsea. Spurs are Spurs. West Ham have Arsenal, Leicester, Newcastle, Everton, Wolves. In theory, after the Arsenal game, they can try. If they can get 6 points out of the next 5 games, I think they would have done well. Wolves have Bournemouth, Fulham, Everton, Southampton, and Wolves. And West Ham. This is the right time, especially after the Bournemouth game, to get into Wolves players. And that's the FDR. The game week starts today on Friday, or rather tomorrow, but you'll be listening to this tomorrow. So today on Friday, Leicester versus Brentford will be kicking us off. So make your team. Apart from that, all the best. Bye.